Hey everybody, Roxbox90 here with another Magic history and controversy discussion. So this one is going to be probably a couple of videos dealing with a general same topic, and that is the end of Magic the Gathering. End of Magic the Gathering, where players would freak out about stuff that would ruin the game in their minds, whether it's the changing of rules, cards that were breaking formats, all sorts of, we'll call them mistakes or confusing things that WotC has done over the years, and that when they happened, people freaked out. Lo and behold, Magic is still here. We are on 20th anniversary year, but let's go through these things. So we're going to start out with the cards. Cards that made people very, very unhappy, limited edition cards, cards that changed what had been expected in the game, cards that were completely broke formats or destroyed the entire versatility and options in formats, and cards that completely changed what people expected in Magic. So we start out with the Nalathni Dragon, and this is actually pretty apropos because we just had a similar problem very, very recently. Nalathni Dragon was a card that was printed for Dragon Con 1994, and you could pretty much only lay hands on this card at the time from that convention because we didn't really have things like eBay and such. The fact they made the card just for that, and the fact that most people couldn't lay hands on it, made people very unhappy. Today, if you remember, we had the Back in Black Planeswalkers had a similar issue initially. They were just released at one San Diego convention, one group, and very limited print, very hard to find, very expensive. Wizards has promised they're going to be putting more out, but again, it's kind of the same mistake, so you think Wizards would have learned their lesson from 1994. Guess not, at least not completely. Next up, we have the pitch cards, cards that were played for free, basically. This started in 1996 during the Alliances block because we had cards like the infamous Force of Will, and actually it was a 5-cycle of cards that were called pitch cards, and that you could play them for free if you threw out something and lost some life or whatever it was. But Force of Will is the most infamous, obviously the most expensive, a defining staple in Legacy without a doubt. You basically can't run in Legacy any sort of major control deck without Force of Will. That sort of thing, being able to play cards when your opponents were tapped out, highly controversial at the time because it used to be that once you were tapped down, you were expected you couldn't really do a lot. Then free cards came. Next up, we have Necropotence. Necropotence came out in the mid-90s, I believe, and it was actually voted initially the worst rare of its set from Inquest magazine. Originally, we had a card, I think it was called Black Vise. So that card kept Necropotence completely in check. But once that card was restricted, Necropotence took over the format, making Black Summer, or the Summer of Necro, because it owned most everything. And it continued to own year after year for years, where it would be definitely in the top tournament decks, if not winning, almost every single year. So seriously, a card that, despite being limited, continued to be played all the way into Extended for years afterwards. Pretty ridiculous. And even today, it's banned in every single professional tournament format, except Vintage, and in Vintage, it's restricted. It was so prolific that Worth Wolpart, who used to work at Wizards, said if you can't beat them, join them, and that's what most professionals did at the time. Then we had in 1999 premium cards, such as foils. This started in Urza's Legacy, foils and foil promotional cards. A lot of people don't like foils, even to this day. I personally like foils, so I am quite happy that that change was made, but at the time people were like, why are you making it hard enough to find? Cards are already hard enough to find, Wizards, why are you making them even harder to find? And today many of the foils from Urza's Legacy and such are incredibly expensive. So I do hear that complaint, but I think it's for the better that change happened in Magic history. 2002 we had Magic the Gathering Online with digital cards. So pretty much people were like, hey, why are you charging digitally the same amount for my paper? It's the same question we have for the publishing industry today when you have ebooks and you have paper copy books, and the same sort of thing. Both can coexist together, and as Magic the Gathering Online showed, the whole explosion about, oh my gosh, the end of Magic, paper, and blah, 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 and such, it was completely overblown. Magic the Gathering Online is a solid thing. It's still here, very awesome, but it has not gotten rid of paper Magic. 2004, there was a release of a very small card you guys might have heard of, and it literally is pretty small, Skullclamp. Skullclamp came out. Wizards had really no idea just how powerful this card was when they released it. And it wasn't even so powerful when it was initially came out. But quickly it became the thing. The thing in Magic. People were so upset they couldn't believe that Wizards printed a card like that was so broken. It went into every deck, including control decks, aggro decks, every deck around would try to run as this card. Even some decks would run 4-ofs, 3-ofs, 4-ofs. It was everywhere. Completely owned the entire format and became so ridiculous that, of course, once Affinity hit, Wizards decided to ban Skullclamp. But guess what? The fact that Wizards almost destroyed Standard with one card didn't stop there, because shortly thereafter, in the next year or so, Arcbound Ravager took over the format, and Affinity Ravager decks just destroyed everything. They became arguably the most powerful deck in the format. Most of the professional games became, are you running Ravager? Okay, are you running Anti-Ravager? Otherwise, why are you here? So Wizards got to the point where they had to ban not just Arcbound Ravager, but they banned Ravager, Disciple of the Vault, 6 artifact lands, even Aether Vial. And remember, this is after Skullclamp was banned. It was a completely disastrous situation for Wizards. People were really unhappy about how the format was going, and luckily enough, Wizards banned stuff. Just so you know, Affinity today is still played in Modern. It is a deck, so it wasn't completely destroyed. Modern still has some stuff. Then we had Bitter Blossom, which came along, and with fairies proceeded to completely crush everyone into the ground. Bitter Blossom is banned in Modern, and was I don't remember if it was actually banned during Standard time, but it definitely caused a lot of problems. People were very, very unhappy. Planeswalkers came out in 2007. Planeswalkers, as we know, was a completely new card type out of nowhere, changed a lot of ways people played, and they are major staples, even to this day, in professional play and all over Magic. Icons, symbols, unique cards, very, very cool inclusions to the Magic history, but at the time definitely had their naysayers, and a lot of people were not happy with Planeswalkers. And then we had Jund completely destroy formats, where you had Bloodbraid Elf and Blightning and so on completely own formats, because for some reason, even though Bloodbraid into Blightning shouldn't have been consistent, it was consistent. Jund became arguably the most hated deck at the time. It was winning, and Bloodbraid was so powerful to the point that fairly recently, I think the last year or so, Wizards did ban Bloodbraid. That deck was quite a monster for a long time. Then we had the Caw-Blade decks. Jace the Mind Sculptor and Stoneforge hit, and that was very, very sad. There's not much to say about that, but most tournaments, the amount of people going to tournaments declined tremendously. Wizards was losing a lot of people's interest in professional play because it basically became Caw-Blade and Caw-Blade. Jace was so powerful, so warping. He and Stoneforge and the swords and Squadron Hawk and so on and so forth. The decks continued to evolve no matter what Wizards did, no matter what decks were played. Caw-Blade just was winning. It was a very, very powerful special deck, and people were really sad. Until Wizards banned Jace the Mind Sculptor, which we all know of. And that attempted to fix the format a little bit. And then got rid of Squadron Hawks and rotation, and finally, Caw-Blade moved away from Standard. And of course they banned Jace, so he really can only own in Caw-Blade in Legacy, and there's enough powerful decks in Legacy to hold their own. But even so, Caw-Blade is one of the more powerful decks in existence, even today. Then we had the Primeval Titan Valakut Cobra Red Aggro year or something. I mean, it was at least a year where red-green aggro just dominated everything. And I distinctly recall people being very, very sad that Control pretty much had no chance until Primeval Titan rotated. Wizards did not jump the gun and ban Primeval Titan or ban any of the other major staples from the deck. They decided to wait it out because there was still a little bit of other deck play, but Primeval Titan and the Valakut decks just so dominated the format. I think they even had, I don't remember if they still had Vengevine at that point, but those decks were seriously, seriously powerful. And I myself remember how boring the format was. Skipping to 2011, we had the flip cards from Innistrad, having to pull the cards out of sleeves, flip them over, having to play in pre-releases with these weird checklist cards. People were not exactly thrilled because I personally didn't like it, and a lot of people didn't like it. But, Wizards was pushing the fold there, and Magic did not end Then we had the Sliver controversy, which is very, very recent. I guess you could say Delver. I don't know. I don't think Delver fits quite into the breaks every format thing. It only lasted a little while where Delver was everywhere, and then it moved away pretty quickly. So if you guys think Delver, fine, but I don't. And then lastly, the last controversy about card changes was involving slivers in 2014, where Wizards brought back slivers but changed some of the rules by making them only affect your slivers and by making them very humanoid, which kind of removed the hive mind concept and undermined what made slivers so iconic in the past. That is, that they are a hive mind, and that if you were playing slivers and your opponent were playing slivers, the slivers would connect and help each other. So it became a very, very convoluted battlefield to play in. Was rather interesting, but of course also confusing. I can see why Wizards changed things. I don't really mind the changes, but I know a lot of people were very, very unhappy. And lo and behold, after all these card changes coming out, warping, destroying formats, changing the way we play Magic, Magic is still here. Whew. So that is a very brief, non-inclusive historical discussion and controversial discussion of Magic's card history. So let me know your thoughts about the video. I'll be hopefully making one involving rule changes in the near distant future, but let me know your thoughts about this video below in the comments section as well. Check out my channel sponsors in the description of the video, and as always, Roxabox90 signing out. I'll see you guys next time.